Welcome to this presentation about quantitative surveys by Steph Hoppy and Christina Holton. In this presentation, we are going to cover the following things. We're going to talk about what quantitative surveys are and what they include. We're going to talk about the background and history of surveying. We're going to share with you some example surveys, and we're going to discuss the benefits and problems with using surveys. Surveys are instruments that are designed to measure, observe, and/or document data. This data is then compiled and analyzed using different quantitative techniques. The goal of most surveys is to collect data from a group of individuals known as a sample, and then generalize the results seen within the sample to the larger population as a whole. In order for the survey to provide researchers with accurate and quality data, it is important that the survey be administered to a representative sample of the population being targeted. Surveys are also sometimes referred to as questionnaires. Throughout history, and even today, surveys have been administered through many different contexts, including in person, on paper, via the telephone, and on the internet. Questions within a quantitative survey measure different types of variables. Categorical variables are measured using discrete responses. They can be dichotomous, nominal, or ordinal. Continuous variables are measured using interval or ratio responses. Let's look at some examples of survey questions for categorical variables. A dichotomous question provides the respondent two options from which to choose, whereas nominal questions have greater selection of responses to select from. In both of the examples shown here, the respondent would select which option best represented themselves. An ordinal question provides the respondent the opportunity to rank their preference with some kind of ordinal scale to distinguish between which response is more preferable than another. When considering survey questions for continuous variables, an interval question provides a result that is measured along a continuum. A ratio question is similar to an interval question in that it provides a numerical response, but it compares to an origination or starting point. Consider if someone were to respond to both of these situations with a numerical response of 0. For the interval question, this would just represent a specific value of 0 degrees Celsius, which is an actual measurable temperature. For the ratio question, 0 would represent no height or that of the originating point, meaning no value. Now let's look at the background and history of quantitative surveys. The first surveys utilized for research came about around the 1930s. Most surveys during this time were conducted in person or via telephone. Most often, the researcher would conduct the survey around a geographical frame, targeting a population within a specific town, county, or other geographical area. Since the concept of surveys was so new, researchers were able to get very high response rates, often over 90%. Much of the data collected was around individual viewpoints and attitudes, as well as feedback on specific products. Here are some of the names of a very few important contributors to early survey research. Francis Likert justified the 5-point rating scale that is still very well known today during his 1929 PhD dissertation. George Gallup founded the American Institute of Public Opinion and conducted nationwide public opinion polling with the Gallup poll. Elmo Roper founded the marketing research firm Sherrington, Wood and Roper. This firm also conducted public opinion research for Fortune magazine with the Fortune poll. And Paul Lazarsfeld was the founder of the Columbia University's Bureau of Applied Social Research. By the time the 1960s rolled around, the survey field was really experiencing tremendous growth, especially through the popularity of telephones. Researchers could still survey within a geographical frame because the actual phone numbers were indicative of where an individual lived. By the late 1960s, computers were being used more as a means of administering surveys as well as performing the statistical computations on the resulting data. The federal government increased research funding during this time, and as a result, more and more sample surveys took place. Also during this era, more social scientists were using quantitative data in their research. The private sector increased their surveying of customers. This data could help inform businesses about customer usage and satisfaction, which would in turn drive changes to management. The designs of sampling shifted during this time as telephones were more widely used. The shift was from stratified sampling, where researchers would make sure that each unique subpopulation was sampled, to cluster sampling, where the population is divided into clustered and sampled by cluster, to sampling using a combination of listed and unlisted phone numbers. By the late 20th century, survey response rates really started to drop. Many attributed this to the advances in technology. Answering machines, caller ID, and cell phones all are complicating factors for those wishing to survey via telephone. If someone does not wish to participate in a survey, they simply let the call go to an answering machine or to voicemail. If an individual does not recognize a phone number, they are less likely to answer the call. Also, phone numbers are increasingly less predictive of one's geographical location, so using phone surveys within a geographical frame is much more complex. There has been an increase of self-administration of surveys on the internet during this era, although early web-based surveys were often paired with other modalities. These surveys are often more cost-effective and they provide faster turnaround time than telephone surveys or ones administered via the postal mail. Technology of the 21st century has also allowed for greater collection of organic information and data. Unlike data from the earlier in the 20th century that was collected using specific design, there exists a lot of data nowadays that has not even been accessed yet. With Amazon and Google collecting data on search patterns and Twitter collecting data on tweets, data is quickly becoming an expansive and possibly very cheap commodity. So here's an example study that I wanted to share with you. As part of a doctoral dissertation, a PhD student at Iowa State University utilized data collected from the Community College Presidency Demographics and Leadership Preparation Factors Survey. Through this survey, quantitative data was collected from over 400 community college presidents across the United States. The survey consisted of 40 items that were divided into 7 different sections. The survey was administered online, and the goal of the research was to look at the demographics, backgrounds, career pathways, leadership programs, and educational preparation needed to develop the transformational leadership skills embedded in the American Association of Community College Leadership Competencies among community college presidents. Through descriptive statistics, exploratory factor analysis, ANOVA, and multiple regression models, the researcher found many different things from the data that was collected. Some include the fact that an earned doctorate degree is still seen as the educational passport to a community college presidency position. There is no difference between those with the highest degree earned and the perceptions of preparation needed. And leadership development should not be restricted to higher education programs only. It should be ongoing. Additionally, 5 major challenges for community college presidents were found in this study.
Another study that we would like to share with you was titled Securing a Better Future, a Portrait of Female Students in Mississippi's Community Colleges. A group of researchers organized and implemented a study as part of a larger effort to understand and improve circumstances for female community college students in Mississippi. In addition to performing individual interviews with 8 community college administrators, the researchers conducted an online survey and received responses from nearly 500 female students from 13 of the 15 community colleges in Mississippi. The survey was designed to identify supports and practices that could help women succeed in community college and attain economic security. It explored women's motivations for pursuing college, their personal and career goals, their support needs, and the economic health and time challenges that they experienced. The researchers found that female community college students in Mississippi were a motivated group who invested substantial energy and effort in completing their education. They saw a college degree as a pathway to economic security and personal fulfillment. According to the researchers, the top 3 reasons to pursue a college education for these students included to support themselves, to support their family, and for personal fulfillment. The study's method of data collection and approach to analysis were appropriate. However, 60% of the sample came from students of 2 colleges of the 15 total in Mississippi. Also, the sample differed somewhat in both age and race from the state's female college student population, so generalization was limited for this study. From this example study, one can see the benefits of a survey and the problems of a survey, which we will explore next. Qualitative survey research has benefits and problems that are reflections of the society that it measures. Surveys. First, let's talk about the benefits. Surveys provide valuable information that guides decision making. Furthermore, survey anonymity allows participants to perhaps be more honest with their responses. If it is clear that the survey responses will remain confidential, participants will likely respond truthfully and candidly. Formatting and presentation of surveys are clear due to perhaps new internet resources. There are various resources online that provide opportunities for researchers to tailor their surveys so they are clear for participants and organized in an efficient and effective way. Surveys can also be administered in a variety of ways in order to increase response rates. Surveys allow researchers to reach out to thousands of possible participants, if necessary, ensuring a more accurate sample in which to draw conclusions. Next, turnaround time for data is quick. Data collection is fairly simple with surveys, which tend to use easy-to-read data sources that can be compiled and analyzed as necessary for market research needs. The ability to analyze these themes is fairly simple with surveys, compared to other ways of collecting data. And then lastly, surveys are fairly cost effective. They are known by many as one of the cheapest statistical tools. Surveys, particularly online surveys, have a very small cost per participant. Even with incentives, the cost per response is often far less than other ways of collecting data, such as focus groups or phone interviews, while the responses you receive can number into the thousands. Next, let's talk a little bit about the problems. First, there's been a decline of participation rates in household surveys. Researchers must ensure that they have a representative sample from which to collect data. It's important for researchers to consider their sample and provide ways for people to participate in a survey for data collection that would provide opportunities for people from a certain sample to share. There's also a high cost of surveys that aim for higher response rates. So more tools are becoming available to help researchers increase their response rates, But these tools cost money, sometimes a lot of money, and this increases the cost of collecting data. Next, traditional sampling frames are also fraying or wearing out. Next, telephone surveys are difficult because of the rise in cell phones. A lot of younger people don't even have landlines anymore, so you're relying on reaching people through cell phones. And then lastly, samples may be rigid. Researchers need to be diligent about creating surveys that ask all of the questions that they may need information about in a clear way, as well as present all of the answers possible for those questions. In order to ensure that researchers capture all the data they need and want, all of the possible answers to questions need to be present. Participants need to have space to respond accurately so that the research is accurate and effective. To kind of sum up some thoughts about quantitative research through surveys, we'd like to just share a few things. First, sharing information through surveys openly and honestly is governed by cultural norms that change. Therefore, survey research is also constantly changing. Self-report surveys provide tremendous insights into the thoughts, aspirations, and behaviors of individuals and large populations, and they offer a reliable way to collect and analyze data. However, it's essential that the researchers pay close attention to the ways that they conduct these surveys so that they are effective and accurate. If you have any questions about the content of this presentation, please feel free to post them in this discussion board, and Christina and I will try to answer them. Lastly, we have a couple of slides that share the resources we used when creating this presentation, as well as our example studies references. Thank you.